This is my Zotac RTX 4090 and this is a giant GPU. And the thing about this is, it is not actually that big. Like the PCB ends somewhere here and it's a PCB, so it's like very thin, which means that like 99% of this thing is just heatsink. It's just one enormous heatsink. And this is the Alphacool Core GeForce RTX 4090 AMP with, because AMP, this is the AMP GPU with backplate. And for today, I wanted to find out if it is worth it to water cool a RTX 4090, or if the heatsink, the enormous heatsink, which is immediately attached to the GPU, is actually so good, or if the whole cooling system of this thing is so efficient, so good, that it's just not worth it anymore to water cool a GPU. So as for this Alphacool Core GPU block, of course there are multiple versions of this for every possible GPU. Alphacool offers now, or with the Core series, they have cleaned up their lineup a bit and everything is now a bit easier to understand. But for the Core GPU block, there is essentially this version, and then you can see if you have a core water block that fits to your GPU essentially. And I guess they have multiple versions with each one having the screws positioned slightly differently so that you have more GPUs that can be used for this. I guess let's open this box, see what's inside, and then let's water cool the GPU and see if the whole thing was worth it or if I just wasted a whole ton of money. So what do we get in the box? We have a manual. Ooh. Oh fuck, this is heavy. This is like really, really heavy. That was pretty easy. This is pretty easy, but they still got that that connector for the RGB. Like I guess there is an RGB, I can even see there's an RGB strip in there. You can even see it yourself. Proprietary, I don't like proprietary. But the block itself looks quite nice. I gotta give him that. The Alphacool logo here. I'm not sure if I like the in and out. I mean, yeah, sure, idiot-proof, but it will now say in and out all the time. I'm not so sure about this. And you got the GeForce RTX. And the back is pretty... Oh, this is going to bother me. Okay, this is going to bother me. Look at this logo here. This little sticker that they put in there. And then look at this line here. Do you see how the logo is off? Like that's... It's going to bother me forever. It's like the stickers on fans that are not straight. It's just... it's just annoying. Oh, how cool is that? Okay, so in the box of goodies here, or the box of installation material, we got some thermal pads, 3mm for backplates. We got some additional thermal pads, which are for, I guess, the other side. No, also for backplate, the 1mm ones. But hey, at least they are pre-cut. And then we got the adapter from proprietary from the like proprietary thingy back to 3-pin ARGB, because this couldn't be like mounted immediately there, because that makes freaking sense. But the thing that makes me happy is this little bracket here, because we can replace the original one, which is just absolutely unnecessary. We have like the 3-slot card here, and we can make it a 2-slot card because, well, the GPU isn't as thick anymore and it doesn't need 3 slots. And then we of course got the manual. And Alphacool never had a reputation of making bad manuals. Everything seems fairly well explained. And with that, everything is ready. I guess now it's time to water cool this behemoth here and make it way, 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 way smaller, because this is just ridiculously big. But oh, I hope the water block is better than the original cooler. I really hope that. So let's get started. Let's first disassemble the card and then get to water cooling it. Okay, so I guess we first need to remove these 6 here. Then we need to remove this retention bracket where you have the GPU on the other side. And this basically keeps the cooler on the chip. And I guess once I remove this one, the other side will just come off. Yeah, and don't do one side completely. Do it in a cross pattern. You don't want to give too much force there. Oh yeah, and this part here is usually spring-loaded, so don't be like shocked when it comes flying off. There we go. Oh. I didn't see that. We got another few screws here. Up. That was way easier than I expected. Yeah, the whole thing is already coming off. Look, wow, that was really easy. So at this point, we need to somehow fill out the connectors for basically the fans and the RGB and everything. But now where the card is already coming apart, that's usually not the hardest thing. So just rip them out. And then you can lift this and rip out the last two. Okay, now let's just see that I know where every screw is. One goes here, one goes here. Screw, 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 screw. Okay, I got all the screws. Yeah, very essential part about this. Don't lose the screws. Never lose the screws. It will be horrible. But yeah, this was very, very easy. Now we need to turn this thing around and then unscrew the 2 remaining screws that keep the backplate in place. 5 remaining screws. Oh, and this one, and that is also keeping the PCIe bracket in place. It's probably slightly glued to it with some pads. Yes, there were some pads on the back. Those pads were gluey pads. That's basically it. This is the whole GPU. This small thing, that's like 500 watts worth of power. But yeah, let me clean this up and then we can get started water cooling it. Oh yeah, and one thing I have learned the hard way, put your cooler back together after you're done. Just screw in all the screws and then put it in your GPU box, let's say, because we all know you kept it anyway, because it's just way too cool looking. So we know you kept it. I keep all of my GPU boxes too. Just put everything back together so that you don't lose it. It's a 2-second step and you will be very happy at the end of it. Oh yeah, look at this shiny little thing. This tiny little portion can eat up like 500 watts. It's incredible to me how small this is. You can see myself. Hey, you can see me. Hi. Anyway, this is a bare bones 4090 amp from Zotac. Impressive to say the least, but now we can get to this puppy here and start water cooling this thing. So let's put this aside and then first things first, I need to take this thing apart again. Oh yeah, and Alphacool does include a screwdriver, but yeah, mine is better. So I will just keep using mine. I love this plate, it's like matte black, it's a beautiful backplate. God, there's a lot of metal there. Oh, cool. It even says here, RTX 4090 AMP or Trinity core. Okay, so this is for the AMP cores and the Trinity cores. Okay, why not? Step 2, remove these spacers here. And that seems to me like a very, very, very crucial step, because otherwise your water block won't make contact. So I guess these are in here so that the backplate doesn't touch anything here and scratch anything here. So yeah, very crucial step. Remove these spacers here, otherwise you're screwed. You're very, very screwed. You would be pushing 500 watts through basically an uncooled GPU, so don't do that. Then we need to take all of the... What the fuck? Here it says for backplate, and here it says for buckplate. Well, I mean, it says from A to F, and you can guess from the manual where is A to F. It says in the manual. So this here is definitely for the PCB, and this here is for the water block. It just says backplate. I don't know why it says backplate. Anyway, pre-cut, and that makes stuff very easy, because I once had a GPU water block where nothing was pre-cut. You need to cut it, and then of course I cut it too big, and then I didn't have enough, and that sucked. Oh, and I can already see they are minimally too big, which isn't a problem. It's better to be too big than too small. Water block ready, and for your reference, you got 2 long ones here, then you got the 2 big ones on the side, a little bit less bigger one here, an even smaller one here, and then the very small ones go here, 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 here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11, oh, go back. So 11 thermal pads in total, and those here are the 1 millimeter ones. So if you need a reference, which ones to replace, 1 millimeter. Next step, prepping the chip. For that, Alphacool does include some thermal paste and a spatula, and in contrast to a CPU, this is a crucial part because you cannot rely on the force of your cooler to spread the whole thing, so you need to spread it yourself. And at that point, I just want to mention very shortly, this is like the cleanest chip I ever had on the GPU. Like the amount of spillover and how much time I used to clean this thing, it was like very, very small. So I don't know if this is like a Zotac thing, but this was particularly easy. Yeah, and I already did great there. So give it a drop and then just spread it somewhat evenly across the whole die. Yeah, well, not my best shot, but I'm also not quite happy with the thermal paste. Like it gets very quickly very cracky once it touches air. No idea why. Maybe it's like an older one that was sitting in some warehouse for some time. But I'm not going to use the one which is included in all of this. But yeah, not very happy with the thermal paste. Anyway, now we can continue. Install the PCB. So I guess at this point, this goes onto here. And for that, I first need to remove the protective film on all of the thermal pads. Now just align the 4 holes and then go straight down like this. And then give it a little push so that all the thermal pads have good contact. And here we need to do something which I did not anticipate, because first we glue these here on for, I guess, additional protection so that you don't overscrew them. Okay, now you got these screws here, the spring-loaded screws, where you got like one additional one in case you lose it. But you are supposed to screw them in, but not in a cross pattern, but in a circle. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you round robin this. Which, okay, I guess. If they want it that way, then I'll do it that way. So I'll give each one a few threads, and then I'll just go round robin. Yeah, and those rubberized pads here, they are just turning with the screw. Okay. And you got a spare one in case you lose one. So for the backplate, we are going to install the thermal pad straight on the PCB and then install the backplate on top of that. And we got even more thermal pads for that part. And those here are the 3mm ones, and they are now here labeled L to Q, but I guess that can vary by your specific GPU. So the big fat one, of course, goes around the backside of the chip, like this. Then we got 2 longer ones. Okay, and for your own reference, this is how it is supposed to look like. The longer one on the side with the connectors. On the other side, also the longer one, but a little bit shorter. Then we got the 2 big ones left and right of the chip, starting and ending right next to these connectors here. The square one, of course, in the center. The little bit smaller one on the side where you got the inlet and outlet, and then the square one on the opposite. Seems pretty easy. Now time for the back plate. And you can align it here and then just press it down. And before I close this up, I guess this here needs to go in between to some degree, but I need to give the GPU a little bit of a lift so that it fits. Yeah, seems fine to me. Because this screw goes and this one goes through the back plate. Like this. And now we can install the long screws. Oh yeah, and you have the leftovers are the original ones which were connected, which were keeping the backplate in place. Not sure why. If they know that you will come out with so many, then I just don't know why they added the 4. But yeah, there you go. And this will scratch immediately. It's matte black. Like, be cautious when you screw in stuff. Whew. There we go. And that was installing a water block on top of a Zotac RTX 4090 AMP. Way quicker than I expected. Like, it has been some time since I last water cooled the GPU, and I guess stuff has gotten easier or I have gotten more competent. You can guess what it was, but fairly easy, takes like, what, 20, 30 minutes if you don't need to do it in front of a camera. But here we are, and God, this thing is, it is beautiful. Like, Alphacool's new lineup, that whole core thing, does streamline the design a bit. It looks very industrial to me. The nice looking backplate, the inlet and outlet, everything looks quite nice. And now where I see it, let's just close the other side. Otherwise, it will just come purring out. I'm not done here, because at the very beginning of this video, I asked if this is even worth it, or if the proximity of that enormous heatsink is so efficient that water cooling doesn't really make a lot of sense anymore with GPUs. And for that, or to get a response to that question, I got this here. Because of course I benchmarked the performance of this one right before this video. So let's install this and see if all of this even made sense in the first place. How has this thing gotten even heavier? How is this even possible? But we somehow need to get water in there, which is why I've also prepared this monster radiator from Alphacool, a 361, connected to these quick connectors here, which are actually for a whole other video, and we'll talk about that in a few days, but for today I'm just going to quickly use them. And yeah, water in, pump is in the bottom, a little reservoir on top, which I probably need to fill a little bit more once the GPU is full. And yeah, let's just see if this has any, like, I'm not trying to measure what radiator you need to make this efficient or make this water cooler worth it. I was just trying to find out if it is even worth it in the first place, or if having a giant heatsink attached right onto the GPU is better for the GPU. So let's just connect these and see where this whole thing goes. Hi, it's me, like 10 hours later. So I figured it out, but first let me just because that pump is just really bad. So as you've seen in my screen recording, the temperature of the GPU was, yeah, for the lack of better words, it would fry itself after a few hours of doing this. So after I saw these temperatures, I decided to disassemble the card and then reassemble it again, redo the pasting, redo everything, and as you can see, I did a lot today. And I just couldn't figure out what was going on. I did see after the first disassembly that the contact of the die and the block wasn't perfect. The area of the imprint of your thermal paste, or the thermal paste, on the water block wasn't as big as the die itself, telling me, yo, there is something not really making contact here. Now the problem is that I rechecked and rechecked and rechecked the manual, and I did everything correctly. And I did use the original screws and everything, so I redid it again, and still the same issue. Redid it again, same still issue. Then I started to apply more thermal paste. I basically put like half a tube on there. Like I overdid that one. And then the contact got better and the temperatures got better. I was even able to maintain that 500 watts throughput on the whole GPU. So we were getting somewhere, but the hotspot was still incredibly bad. Fast forward hours and hours and hours and redoing it again and again and again. And I tried so many different ways of assembling it, the pressure on everything. I really tried everything, and in the end it was two possibilities, because I just couldn't see how my mounting was wrong at this point. Everything was making good contact, or as good contact as I was able to produce, and I just couldn't figure it out. So two possibilities at that point. My card was warped to a degree where something was just off, which I couldn't really see because the card wasn't really used that much. We used my 4090 a bunch of times for a few builds, a bit of benchmarking. Yeah, sure, I heated it up a few times, but it's not like it was running in my personal PC for the last 6 months. Like, it was barely used at all. And the other possibility was that the Alphacool block was bulged, basically. So it just didn't make full contact. Now, I don't want to point fingers at Alphacool at this point, because I don't know. I have nothing which is straight enough to measure that. However, I came up with an idea, because the backside, or the original GPU, the whole heatsink was kept in place using this bracket. I just really hope that I have good B-rolls of this. This bracket here, this retention bracket, and this retention bracket, it has counterparts on the inside. So it's not like just just the like how you would imagine a backplate of a CPU water block, you know, or whatever backplate of a Intel CPU. But going around that thing were like standoffs, and those standoffs were applying pressure more on the inner side of that whole mounting, so more towards the GPU itself, or the die. And my idea was, what if my GPU needs that counter pressure to make good contact? So what I did is just remove that thermal pad, because essentially this thermal pad here is thicker than that original retention bracket, and instead of using the screws that came supplied with the Alphacool block, I just used my retention bracket, the original one. And guess what? The temps are freaking amazing. We got 54 degrees C on the chip, 42 on the memory, and a 65 degrees C, or about 65 degrees C hotspot. And now put that in perspective to the original air temperature, where originally when we were using Thermark at 1080p, the auto function on the fans came down to 70 degrees on the chip, 68 on the memory, and 83 as a hotspot. And then if I manually set the fans to just spin at max, we were looking at 62 on the chip, 58 as memory, and 76 on as a hotspot. And now just compare those values here. The P12 Maxes with that Monster 360 red, that cooling, we are looking at what, 16 degrees C from the original value, and still 8 degrees C difference, same 25 degrees C room temperature, mind you, but still 8 degrees C lower temperatures using this water block. So yes, as a whole, water cooling is still worth it. Yay, I can continue doing the stuff I like. Then as a good measure, I also lowered the P12s to have them spin at roughly the same, like 13, 14, 1500 RPM that the fans did when the original heatsink or the original cooler was running at auto. And with that, we got 60 degrees C on the chip, 50 on the memory, and 72 as a hotspot. So even if I let these P12s here barely spin, it is still by 2 degrees C colder than if I had the original GPU just blasting at max. And if you compare how all of that sounds, it's a day and night difference. So yes, water cooling a 4090 is still worth it. It is way more effective than the original cooler. Even if that thing is just enormous, like this is basically a 360 radiator, like let's not kid ourselves here, this thing is just enormous. Now of course your mileage may vary depending on what radiator, what fan, and if multiple reds and then whatever, and your pump, because the pump that I'm using is just garbage. But all of these values here today just are just there to show that there is a difference. How much will depend on your setup. But this video did not turn out how I expected it to turn out. I thought this would be like a quick let's water cool a 4090 and I'm done in 2 hours video. But it turned into a whole day troubleshooting, where the hell did this go wrong, and yeah, here we are. Now I'm going to write Alphacool an email telling them that I found this, because right now I'm still unsure if this is a water block problem, that the mounting pressure of everything is just not right. I don't know. Maybe my card is warped. Now for anybody out there, technically water cooling this GPU is really easy. It takes like 20 minutes, no problem. But this here is a problem, and right now I don't know why this is happening. I hope to find out. The problem is though, I just have one of those 4090s. Like I don't have 10 to test this water block on multiple GPUs, and I also don't have multiple water blocks to test on the same GPU. So if Alphacool decides to send me over more of these water blocks, I can swap them out with the original screws in that case, and then see if the problem persists. If it disappears, then we know, okay, it's this water block. If it doesn't disappear, then yeah, maybe it's the GPU. Who the hell knows at that point? But I will tell Alphacool about this. Now, for this block, I mean, it's gorgeous. I can say that for sure. But yeah, this was an endeavor. And at this point, this video is so twisted, I don't even know what the point is. So for everybody who's looking for that core water block from Alphacool, it is really easy to use. I will give them that. The installation process compared to where we used to be is kind of easier. So I'm happy with that, and it does look kind of cool. and the RGB looks nice and everything. I'm happy with all of that. I just don't know what to do with this whole retention bracket thing. Like, it just didn't work. It would kill itself after a few hours, so yeah, there's that. But hey, at least I figured it out. Now it's running cool. A lot cooler than original. So yeah, this should be everything for today, and I hope you... I would say I hope you enjoyed this video, but it was such a clusterfuck of information. And look, just look at my table. I thought this would be a 2 hours video, but yeah. Takeaway from this video: 4 PCIe slot thick heatsinks have not yet replaced water cooling. Water cooling still reigns supreme when it comes to temperatures. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you on the next one. Bye bye.